İyi akşamlar değerli ÇARE Sosyalizm izleyicileri. Yeni bir yayın dönemine başladık bu akşam. Yeniden karşınızdayız ve sizlerle birlikteyiz. Bu yeni yayın dönemine yeni bir formatla giriyoruz. Bu dönemde yayınlarımız başlangıçta haftada 2, daha sonra haftada 3'e çıkarmayı hedefliyoruz. Şöyle ki bu yayın her pazartesi akşamları Uluslararası Komünist Hareketin sorunlarını ele alıp düşüncelerimizi, görüşlerimizi ve çözüm önerilerimizi sunacağımız Komünist Perspektif programıyla yayınlanacak ve bu programı değerli yoldaşımız NUSRET yapacak ve bu program İngilizce bir program olacak. Çarşamba akşamları bu programın Türkçe olarak güncel konularla değerli yoldaşım Mustafa Onurer ve ben yürüteceğiz. Ve çarşamba akşamları yapacağımız programlarda ülkemizin ve bölgemizin güncel sorunlarını, siyasal sorunları ve yeri geldikçe de ideolojik sorunları ele alarak yürütmeye çalışacağız. Bu arada yönetmenim ekranda bir ses var, bir hışırtı var. Bunu nasıl giderebiliriz acaba?
O maalesef benim kompüterden geliyor galiba.
Evet, Nusret yoldaş istersen mute yap. Şu anda evet. Ve üçüncü olarak da Cuma akşamları, ama bu haftadan değil, daha ileriki haftalarda Cuma akşamları Nusret Şen yoldaşımızın Komünist Perspektif programında sunacağı düşünceleri ve görüşleri Türkçe'ye tercüme edip onları Türkçe olarak yayınlamayı hedefliyoruz. Dolayısıyla bu akşamki programımız Uluslararası Komünist Harekete, dünyadaki komünistlere yönelik olarak onların ilgisini çekip onların anlayabileceği bir şekilde İngilizce olarak yürütülecektir. Belki sizin etiniz ne budunuz ne, küçücük Kıbrıs'tan böyle büyük hedefleri nasıl önünüze görev olarak koyuyorsunuz diye düşünenler olabilir. Ama biz komünistler olarak ve tam anlamıyla internasyonalist bir anlayış, internasyonalist bir zihniyet içerisinde bütün dünya komünist hareketine hitap edebilmeyi bugünkü komünist faaliyetlerimiz içerisinde bir ihtiyaç olarak görüyoruz. Çünkü bütün dünyada komünistlerin birliği çok önemlidir bizim için ve onlarla görüşlerimizi, düşüncelerimizi paylaşmak önümüzde duran ve hatta oldukça da geciktirmiş olduğumuz bir görevdir. Bu yeni yayın dönemimizde bu görevi başlatmak üzereyiz ve bundan dolayı da mutlu olduğumuzu söyleyebilirim. Evet değerli yoldaşlar, değerli ÇARE Sosyalizm izleyicilerimiz, programımızın bu noktadan sonrası İngilizce olarak devam edecektir. Anlayıp izlemek isteyen, ilgi duyanlar izlesin, bize katılsın, sorular sorsun, yazılı olarak mesajlarını iletebilirler. Eğer İngilizce programı takip edemeyen yoldaşlarımız varsa onlar da çarşamba akşamı yine saat 8'de güncel gündemlerle yürüteceğimiz ÇARE Sosyalizm programımızı takip edebilirler. Dear comrades, the Socialist Party of Cyprus Web TV has started a new season of broadcast. We are planning to be in the air 3 times a week But for the time being, we will be on the air only twice a week. On Mondays, we are going to present the communist perspective, which will be presented by our comrade NUSRET Şen, and he will, in general, tackle the international problems of communism. On Wednesdays, I will be handling the program together with my comrade Mustafa Onurer, in which we are going to handle local programs, local agenda, regional agenda of Cyprus, Eastern Mediterranean, and the Middle East. We are going to start our programs at 8 p.m. Cyprus time. It is 6 p.m. British summer time. I hope you will be able to follow and also contribute to our program, because we believe that as communists, we all have to attach a large importance to internationalism. And as internationalists, we have to share our views about the general problems of the communist movement in the world and about the general situation of capitalist imperialism and how to overthrow the capitalist imperialist regime. Therefore, we need to cooperate, collaborate, exchange ideas, criticize, and self-criticize. This evening, our subject that Mr. Or rather, I would like to say Comrade NUSRET Şen is going to tackle is the questions of restoration of capitalism in the USSR and revisionism in the world communist movement. I am now handing the microphone over to my comrade NUSRET Şen. NUSRET, are you ready? NUSRET?
Yes, indeed, I am ready now.
Great. So I wish you all success. I think this was a program we all had been dreaming about, and I believe, as the General Secretary of the Socialist Party of Cyprus, that on behalf of our party, this is going to be an important contribution to the world communist movement. And I would like to thank you for all your work and efforts towards this goal. You have the microphone, my comrade.
Thank you very much. Hello, comrades. I will be hoping to be with you every Monday, discussing the issues faced by the world communist movement. One of them is, of course, the restoration of capitalism in the USSR. But before I start on that, I would like to say that there's a website called Direct Democracy for You UK, using the information about it below. In that website, many different issues of world communist movement is written about. I would ask the comrades, if they have time, to have a look at that site and study the comments which have been made there on different issues we are facing as regards terrorist strategy and tactics and organization. And of course, it would be much appreciated if the comrades can see a mistake or shortcomings and let us know about them. And that, of course, should also help us to unite as world communists. With subject matter, the unity of world communists, I hope to discuss with you in the future. If we go back to tonight's subject matter, which is the destruction of capitalism in the Soviet Union, I would like to start with what the situation was in the world and in the world communist movement just before March 1953. As you know, the death of Comrade Stalin was announced on the 5th of March 1953. Before that, and after the Second World War, there came into being two parallel markets. As you know, there was only one world capitalist market before that, although Soviet Union has separated. The parallel world markets were one of them was still the world capitalist market, which was led by the United States of America. The other one was the world socialist democratic market, led by the Union of Socialist Republics. Members of which were People's Democracies of Asia and Europe. And just after the war, United Nations came into being, but before March 1953, it has already transformed itself into a USA-led, war-propagating organization undermining its own foundations. This has been noted quite clearly in our documents that the United Nations has declared its founding documents because of the USA leadership and the blockades of USA world over. NATO was also formed as a propagation and preparation of war against USSR and People's Democracies. All capitalist countries were led by USA and were dependent on USA. And we are talking about not just colonial and dependent countries, but also metropolises. And metropolises not just defeated countries such as Japan, Germany, and Italy, but also even the victorious countries, France, England, included. All these countries became dependent on USA, and thus in all these countries, including the metropolis countries, question of national liberation became a problem to be tackled. Therefore, national liberation of nations from USA imperialism became an issue worldwide, and even in the colonial and dependent countries, this struggle was led by our communist parties and democratic parties that were closely allied by the communist parties. In the second market of socialist and democratic countries, People's Democracies of Europe and even the Asia were set on the course of building socialism. While in the USSR, socialism was already built in 1936 with the Stalin Constitution declaring this simple fact. And after the Second World War, the USSR repaired its wounds and set on the course of building communism in the USSR. So, the second market, this parallel market to the world communist movement, was progressing, developing, industrializing very fast. In the Soviet Union, not only did we have the fastest computers in the world, already in the USSR, and electronics, and two automated factories based on these, and development of mechanics. Piston factory is very famous in the USSR as an example of automating all production. So that technology was already there. Hydraulic power stations, nuclear power stations were already controlled automatically through automation, through control mechanism. And we also began the world famous Stalin plan of transformation of nature, which was going to guarantee food production for all USSR, not just guarantee food production for all people of USSR, but plenty of food, preparing the ground for communism and communism in the USSR. That plan was already prepared and was being put into practice. Based on these developments in the world, whereby all nations were being led by the communists and their close allies, and the USSR was progressing towards communism. Under those conditions, Communist Party of Soviet Union began to discuss a new program which would be based on building of communism. While these were going on, there was another development in the World Communist movement, whereby the spies of first the Nazi Germans and then later on Anglo-American imperialists took over the Yugoslav party, our party, and thus through that took over the Yugoslav People's Democratic State and began the fight for restoration of capitalism. This was exposed in 1948. It was also exposed that during the war and after the war, or even before the war, bourgeoisie has been organizing infiltration into our communist parties with specific instructions for some of those infiltrators, those spies, that they should aim to reach the top of the communist parties. And as we can see in Yugoslavia, they achieved it and they transformed. They were forced to come out. And yet they achieved victory in Yugoslavia and they began the restoration of capitalism starting like in the autumn. But after that, we have also found spies in European people's democracies, living in the Asian people's democracies, in the party, amongst the top leadership. And there were trials to expose those spies in the parties. So in most general terms, that's how things were on the before 5th of March 1953. On 5th of March 1953, in the USSR, we had Bulgarin, Beria, Malenkov, Khrushchev, Voroshilov, Kaganovich, Mikoyan, Molotov. These were the top leaders in our Communist Party. World famous, well respected in Soviet Union and the World Communist movement. It is precisely these leaders whose positions were beginning to be changed before March 1953 that took over immediately on the 5th of March 1953, on the day of death of Stalin, and they had began to change the very leadership of our Communist Party of Soviet Union. After this happened apparently on the very night, 6th of March 1953, that they came together and decided to change the political membership. For example, someone called the comrade called Ponomarenko of Belarus has been taken out of Politburo, Yuzhinsky as well, if I'm not mistaken, and many others. Also, the leadership in the movement was changed. What they did in the party on the 5th of March and immediately after, they also discussed and prepared changes in the Soviet state, in the structure and leadership of the Soviet state. On 14th of March 1953, Supreme Soviet met. In the Supreme Soviet, they have changed the very structure of the Soviet state. Malenkov declared that they were discussing all these changes with Stalin, and that now they are doing. They have changed the structure for the worse, and they have changed the leaders of the Soviet state for the worse. For example, Molotov was not the foreign minister, Comrade Brzezinski was. Comrade Brzezinski has been replaced by Molotov. Beria was not the Minister of Foreign Internal Affairs and External Security, Foreign Intelligence Services, but he came back and unified all those ministries, intelligence services, external and internal security, under him. Mikoyan was no longer the trade minister. He came back. Internal and external trade was under him. It is this Mikoyan that talk of right of Armenians to discuss their history and prepare the ground of division amongst Azeris and Armenians. Just in passing. And if you look at the documents of 14th of March 1953 Supreme Soviet, you will see that the state structure was well and truly changed. Many ministries were unified, especially to this industry, military, and planning. And the way it was done, you can now possibly see it was to cause panic. It's really close. Immediately after Supreme Soviet meeting under Beria, through Beria, amnesty of all criminals was declared. Criminals were let out, and apparently that was quite welcome. Not only ordinary criminals, but also political criminals were let out. Amongst them, the most infamous are the doctors. Most of them Zionist doctors alternate murderers, dönemini purpose, they were without, and the communists exposed these criminals, these murderers, were left out. There are other things like Comrade Fader, who was leading the Writers' Union, was taken off and replaced. And by 56 May, he committed suicide. As you know, Paul Robeson was poisoned by most likely something called acid, and he was driven into suicide as well. And many comrades from Politburo were removed. I have tried to express upon some comrades whose Russian is very good, and whose eye to the detail is very good, not to worry about the so-called criminal activities of Stalin and trying to expose the fact that Stalin was not a criminal, but to concentrate on what has been going on since 5th of March. But they are choosing to not to do this. That means we will have to do it, and we will do it. But one thing is clear, our party's top leaders have begun to change our party structure, party leadership, our state structure, and our state leadership. Let me tell you a few of those changes. On 16th of June 1953, the comrades in GDR, German Democratic Republic, Socialist Unity Party, they have met and they came up with a new line. This new line, now all these things are in common form documents, which you can find in our website. In there, they decide to increase consumer good production, reduce tax for farmers, increase price of farmers' products, reduce the number of industrial projects. This, in general, is the new line. This new line, we shall see, in August 1953, Supreme Soviet meeting, became the new line for everyone, including USSR and all people democracies. We shall come to that. This decision of 16 June 1953 in German Democratic Republic was almost immediately followed by an uprising. What these days we call color revolution. I'm sure all the communists know about color revolution. That's what it was. Led by the spies that we mentioned. Quite a number of communists were slaughtered in this uprising, but this uprising was put down. And afterwards, the leadership of the German Democratic Republic, the leadership of the party, defended this new line and carried on. It was said that Beria proposed this new line to GDR and that he was aiming to transfer GDR to Russian imperialists, and that he was also trying to establish relations with Tito, the spy, Tito, the enemy of the peoples, and with Tito's Yugoslavia. But as we said, all of these were put into operation later on, except of course with Beria. Because at the end of June 1953, Beria was arrested and, for all practical purposes, murdered by these top leaders that you mentioned. And when they murdered him, those lines were used that he was trying to sell GDR to Western imperialists, he was a British spy, and that he was trying to establish relations with Yugoslavia led by the spy people. And that's why they killed him in June. Although they say it's later, for all practical purposes, he was arrested and killed, being declared a British spy that wants to give GDR to the West and wants to establish relations with Tito. Because, and strangely, on August 1953, Supreme Soviet meets, and all the line, the new line that we talked about, is adapted. There's a new line for USSR, and then passed on to all people's democracies of Europe and Asia. In there, Malenkov declares, Malenkov, the one who made the speech in 19th Congress, Malenkov, who defended Stalin's views regarding the economic development of socialism in the USSR and thus in the world. It is this Malenkov who declares that in the good old days we had to give priority to development of heavy industry and production of means of production, and of course, most importantly, the production of machines that make machines. But, he says, we have now such a developed heavy industry, machine industry, that this is no longer necessary, that we can now give priority to production of consumer goods, and that it is not Trotsky anymore. But we know that it is worse than Trotsky. We know that if you look at the Capital of Karl Marx, you will immediately see that extended reproduction requires priority of machine building industry, of heavy industry. The consumer production has to be developing in a less speed than consumer. Consumer production should be developing in a less speed than the production of heavy industry. It's a law of capitalism, of extended reproduction, and it is a law of socialism. And it will be a law of communism too, that heavy industry, production of heavy industry, production of means of production, and therefore, most importantly, production of machines that build machines, must develop much faster than consumer production. And yet, and I would like to remind everyone that this speech is not an illegal speech, it's not a secret speech, it's a speech that has been printed in common forms, weekly newspaper, for a lasting piece, for a people's democracy. It is therefore well known to everybody. And take note that not a single soul in the world communist movement objects to this at the time. It is also well known fact that 5-year plans are based upon economic laws of socialist development. It reflects the proportional development of socialist economy and changing that plan, damaging that plan is a criminal act. If whoever engages in such criminal acts are arrested and punished as criminals. Must be arrested and punished as criminals. And yet, all those who take part in this criminal activity, including those 10 leaders, have not been arrested and have not been punished. And as I have mentioned, this plan is the plan that the GDR came up with in June 1953. And that these very same people blamed Beria for it and killed them for it. And now you can see they are actually proposing and applying the very same plan, except Beria, minus Beria. If we carry on, in September 1953, there is a plenum meeting of the Communist Party where Khrushchev comes up with his infamous Virgin Land program. This Virgin Land program is most clearly and most openly an undermining destruction of Stalin plan of transformation of nature. And yet, that plan is accepted in that plan, just as CYPRUS Soviet accepts Melanchthon's speech, and industrial projects are undermined. So now, in the plenum, most clearly, agricultural plans are also undermined. Therefore, the plan of Stalin for building communism in the USSR is undermined, made impossible. In that plenum, it is said that Molotov was very enthusiastic for the plan and said all sorts of things about Stalin's agricultural plans, which involves, of course, undermining the Stalin plan of transformation of nature. And that's Molotov for you, for me, for us. Which will, of course, bring me to this simple thing. I will be diverting, but as you know, Trotsky's are adamant that if you're a leader of the movement, if you're a top leader of the movement, you must be untouchable. But you can see that top leaders may most clearly betray the movement. And all the worker congress, all the communist congress must keep an eye on all leaders, and particularly the top leaders. You must see that they abide by Marxism. If we carry on, in 1954, the famous economic political handbook comes out. As you know, Stalin talks about the book with its economic problems. It comes out in 1954. Apparently there is a 1953 version of this book, but it's been locked up. We're not able to get a copy of it, so we don't know if it is any better than the 1953 version. But one of these days we will get hold of that 1953 versions. I'm sure COMRADE will help us to get a copy of it. Those who have got it and keep it to themselves must be ashamed of themselves, if they can blush. In this 1954 Economic Political Handbook, law prior to development of means of production is defended. Please take note. There comes Melenkov in August 53, declares there is no need for this law to be applied. And here it is, the 1953 Economic Political Handbook, and this law is defended. But although that law is defended there, although, as we all know, Communist Stalin formulated it most clearly in his economic problems, the fact that it's been denied in August 1953 is not mentioned by anybody. There's another problem. As you know, Comrade Stalin talks about production, product exchange. Product exchange is a means of taking economic steps to transform colonies into state property. Unifying colonies is a consistent part of planning operations, because as colonies, although their activities are planned, that planning is not as exact as state industrial activities. It cannot be. To overcome that shortcomings and to transform, not immediately, but in slow and patient and proper steps, to colonize into state property, product exchange is proposed. Now, product exchange has this. Colonies, as they are not big enough. They are becoming a burden in the economy. They are not progressing, and they are becoming a burden. To not become a burden, they must enlarge. To encourage colleges to unite and enlarge, product exchange is proposed, which gives the new colleges, the enlarged colleges, more products than the colleges that do not unify. So it's beneficial that they become engaged in product exchange. And product exchange, since it will be planned, is those enlarged colleges, becomes much better for planning. This is similar to the way the colleges were built. If you remember, although everybody says this and that, colleges were built by encouragement of the small peasants, medium peasants, through providing them more products, lots of benefits through the proletarian state. It's only thus that medium and small peasants were encouraged through economic steps to form colleges. And colleges were formed thanks to that. And now, through product exchange, colossus themselves are being encouraged to become bigger colossus and to engage in product exchange so that things can be planned even bigger. But that is not mentioned in 1954 economic political network. And as regards vision of communism, the only mention is utterly and totally technical. The economic steps, most important of which is unification of colossus and product exchange, is not mentioned. And therefore that plan of communism proposed in the economic political handbook of 1954 is not Lenin's plan of building communism. The way these top leaders act is seen in 1955 again. Shapilov writes an article that attacks Malenkov for undermining the law of priority development of means of production. It's a very good attack from Malenkov. You might as well say why these delays, since Shapilov as the leader was building this economic political handbook from the days of Stalin, and that the economic political handbook itself defended this law in 1954. That's something can only be explained by not the proper Marxists, not standing one's ground, giving in to the trail of Marxism, because in the same article, all the acts, practical acts taken since 1953 that undermines the economic structure and therefore the state structure of USSR is defended. Economic steps are defended as mere changes to the plan to re-establish balances. As you know, during the application of the plan, inevitably comrades produce more and more, faster and faster, and therefore the plan usually ends up being not right, not good enough, that things develop much faster, production and products increase much faster, and therefore things have to be adapted. Balances must be re-established. That's the right thing to do. But to justify development of consumer production much faster in these periods, to justify virgin lands, to justify production of tens of thousands of tractors for virgin lands, and all sorts of artificial chemicals for these virgin lands, and to call it changes to the plan to re-establish balances is the most disgusting way of behaving. One should not expect such things from Shapilov, but there you are. Comrade Shapilov, who was one of the best economists, the writer of economic political handbook, behaves in this fashion. And in the meantime, all those 10 leaders they are mentioned, well respected, well known, well loved by everybody, doing the same. Betray. Betray is the name of the game for these leaders. Then in 1956, right to the start of 1956, we have the 20th Congress. In this 20th Congress, take note that it's not just Hitler who defends the prior to development of means of production, but Khrushchev. Khrushchev, the defender of the economic laws of socialism, the one who defends the virgin lands and economic laws of socialism, by have development of means of production of heavy industry. And he practices it heavily. How does he do it? Produce lots of chemical factories for fertilizers or what have you. Produce lots of tractors. Produce lots of steel for tractors and what have you. And that does the job. Of course, we can also produce lots of guns, weapons, in the name of defending our freedom. And we meet the criterion for prior development and production. In the meantime, in 1956-57, and afterwards, the very development of computerization is blocked by these papers. So much so that the fastest computers were built in the USSR. All this is given up to USA. So that USA becomes the leader of computerization. This is a most latest act by these people. And we shall in future mention a few of the newcomers. That's just it. There are very good articles on this, written in 53-54, explaining the use of product exchange, explaining why it must be applied, how it must be done, and we shall find these on our website. But at the 20th Congress, Khrushchev, the traitor, declares that those who defend product exchange are idiots, stupids, so and so. All sorts of names are used against this Congress from the rostrum, and that commodity exchange must be developed constantly, and only the commodity exchange must be developed. And product exchange is an attack. It can only be defended by idiots. Of course, as you know, the first defender of product exchange was Stalin. And I may add, this is not done. It's a secret speech. This is not done behind closed doors. This is done in the rostrum of the 20th Congress, where not just those 10 leaders we mentioned and the newcomers, but the World Communist Movement leaders are present. And nobody objects to this attack on the Congress and product exchange. No one thinks on earth we're going to transform Congresses. State property. How on earth we're going to exempt the planet of agriculture. So accepted. and Khrushchev take that in his theories. Not only that, Stalin's views are openly attacked by the court in the student periods. Some people may want to hide it, but they may upset can see it. İngiliz openly burada şey yapıyor. Not only product exchange and with machine production should be machine that produce machines should be the priority. Not only those things. Not the Stalin plan of transformation of nature. Not only those things. But production technique, how the production develops under capitalism. As you know, Stalin proposed a change in this dönemini. Says doesn't develop fast enough. And that the world capitalism in general is markets and the crisis. And he declares that world capitalist market doesn't develop fast enough, and this will contribute to crisis. All of these views of Stalin is attacked in the 20th century. Have you met anyone, any of your esteemed comrades of this or that version of world communist movement who are supposed to represent world communist movement against another position? No. None of them would be rumors. None of them stood their ground. None of them defended Stalin. And therefore, none of them defended Marxism. Khrushchev's secret speech at the end of the 20th Congress, which is supposed to be secret, attacking Stalin, was not secret. It was secret to us who were kept ignorant, and the Prussian politics ignores his no excuse, and we are no excuse. Alacak is Alacak'sınız. Bad. Disgusting. Which means overcome, and which we are doing our best to overcome in every comrade who's connected to this past, either engages in scientific and takes its past, and actually they don't take away Greek Communist and Greek Communist Party, because this is a covering of the mistakes. But let us know that secret speech was not such a secret speech. It was discussed by all in something of 1956. Now, I want to take you back again to a different subject matter, a little bit more international. After March 1953, after Molotov became foreign minister, the demands of Georgia and Armenia from Turkey, and demands of USSR with regards to Bosphorus from Turkey, as you know, Germans were allowed to pass through the Bosphorus, not being declared, but they were all over Black Sea with their submarines and ships, and they all passed through Bosphorus during the Second World War. And you know, not everyone may know, but the communists know that Turkey was preparing its armies in the east, hoping that Stalingrad is won by German, so that they joined the anti-communist Soviet Union. Then it's also known that German gays were using airfields in the east of the USSR. Based on that, and to punish Turkish behavior, which was reactionary behavior, Germany and Armenia make demands on Turkey and Bosphorus. States of Bosphorus was on the agenda by the USSR. But what happened? As soon as Melancholy became foreign minister, they have annulled all those demands. And good relations were established. And also, the leader of the Communist Party of Turkey, Dr. Şidaymer, his membership of the Communist Party of Soviet Union is annulled recently by these states. Under Molotov, relations with Israel as re-established. Israel attacked USSR. Israel would organize the doctor's club for USA. And the relations with peace were re-established. And immediately ceasefire on Korea, which could not have been kept under Stalin. Yeah, because USA's demands were met. In 1954, under Molotov, they applied to join NATO. Is there any person out there that doesn't know NATO is a reactionary war-making organization? Is it not against the law of Soviet Union to join war-making organizations and war-propagating organizations? Make war? It is. And what does Molotov do? He asked to join NATO. And of course, he is refused. And NATO says you're not democratic. And again, under Molotov, and immediately in 1954, Austria is given. In Austria, just like Germany, they were joint governments. Parts of Austria was governed by the USSR. That part has been given up in the name of neutrality of Austria. And as regards neutrality, even Swiss neutrality was very much known as sham. And that Austrian made neutrality between sham too. And also, Austrian Communist Party, that was fighting to martialize Austria, was left on the bridge. All program and plan of Austrian Communist Party was one step taken by the USSR and the Molotov as destroyed. Okay. Now, I notice we are over 7 o'clock, so I suggest I stop here and then shall carry on discussing these things next week and the week after until we have a better understanding of what has been going on. I hope all this has been of use to all the comrades as regards some historical data and what conclusions to draw from all this as regards the restoration of the USSR. We shall further Okra in our future meetings. So, I'm going to finish this here. I have to see you next comments.
United forever in friendship and labor, our mighty republics will ever endure. The great Soviet Union will live through the ages, the dream of a people, their fortress secure. Long live our Soviet motherland, built by the people's mighty hand. Long live her people, united and free, strong in a friendship tried by fire. Long may our crimson flag inspire, shining in glory for all men to see. Through days dark and stormy, while great Lenin led us, our eyes saw the bright sun of freedom above, and Stalin, our leader, with faith in the people, inspired us to build the land that we love. For the future, destroyed the invader, and brought to our homeland the laurels of fame. Her glory will live in the memory of nations, and all generations will honor her name. Long live our Soviet motherland, built by the people's mighty hand. Long live her people, united and free, strong in a friendship tried by fire. Long may our crimson flag inspire, shining in glory